Hello, everyone. My name is Darwin, and I'm a Principal Partner Solutions Architect at GitLab Alliances. Today, I want to take you through some of the newly announced technology and solutions that have been worked out so that GitLab and AWS can work better together. As we'll see, some of these are on the AWS side, and some of them are on the GitLab side. So let's dive right in. We'll be covering this list of a variety of different things that are available as of the end of calendar year 2023. So one of the first things that's been really awesome about the partnership is Amazon has been able to build something called a CodeStar Connections capability for a GitLab project. And this capability allows a lot of other services to be opened up. In addition, some other service teams have pitched in and created integrations of their own, and GitLab has created some integrations as well in the area of IAM. Another new thing for 2023 is our solutions architecture documentation. So at GitLab, we now have a page where we can do solution documentation in order to help customers find out all the ways that you can integrate the two platforms. This page that I'm about to show you is a single source of truth. It shows you that we have a variety of ways of connecting. So on this particular text tag chart here, it's showing that anything that's tagged as a configuration is something that you simply could do, but might need some guidance on how to configure GitLab or AWS or both to accomplish a specific connection or integration. The built one, whether it's by AWS or GitLab, is something that has been built into the other platform in order to integrate with each other. So AWS built items are built into AWS in order to connect to GitLab, and GitLab built items are features that are built into GitLab to connect to AWS. We also have very active solutions architecture communities on both sides of the partnership. And those communities frequently put out some substantial solutions that show how to assemble all the parts, so to speak, of AWS and GitLab together into a specific solution to help with a specific use case. And sometimes these can be quite elaborate. They're also covered on this page. And I'll just give you a quick preview of the page here. As we page down, we see there's a variety of different integration types. And there's pointers to where they exist out in repositories or in documentation and other areas. So hopefully that page will be really helpful to you and your efforts. In addition, most of this content was covered at AWS reInvent, this particular presentation I'm giving. And there's a link here that will take you to the videos from AWS reInvent 2023. These were GitLab Lightning Talks, so they won't be found in the regular Amazon videos or agenda. And also, as I go through, I'll be referencing other talks that are at the conference. You can find them at this URL. One of the areas in which GitLab had some progress this year was a couple new partner qualifications. So one of them that we achieved is called the DevSecOps specialty within the DevOps software competency. So we already had DevOps software competency. We went ahead and did some additional audits with Amazon to make sure that our solution meets their criteria to be presented as a DevSecOps solution. I'm happy to report that we passed through that process and now have that designation. We continued our investment in Amazon Linux to include Amazon Linux 2023 Service Ready. When GitLab does do new distro support, we make sure that we have the full packages for that distro, as well as a repository for you to use those packages from. Within GitLab CI, we have over 2,300 CI tests to make sure that a given deployment is ready to go. And then GitLab already had these designations. We're a public sector partner, AWS Graviton ready, and we have the DevOps software competencies. These partner designations were already there, but I wanted to highlight them in case you weren't aware of them. Another exciting thing was we released GitLab Dedicated. GitLab Dedicated is a managed service provider approach to hosting GitLab that GitLab runs for you. So we install a dedicated copy of GitLab on Amazon, and then you have a private isolated tenant for your company. The capability for this is also allows you to pick a region out of a set of regions. So you have that concept of data residency that you can choose where your data resides. You can also bring your own encryption key so that you know all of your data is safe, even though the instance is being operated by another company. And of course, you have private networking to your on-premise environments. We can also do attestations on these environments for a variety of attestations. When GitLab is installed, it is ready to do that attestation. However, if you're familiar with this process, your organization must get the designation for the specific instance that is set up. So you have to work into the process any changes or procedures that you have along with the GitLab evidence in order to get that attestation. One thing that we had to build in order to make this a good experience for customers is a new switchboard capability, which allows customers to have access to a certain number of the self-managed administration capabilities without allowing all of them. If we had allowed all of them, it could be fairly easy for a customer to cause an instance to become non-operational by changing settings that they weren't aware cause infrastructure changes on the back. So GitLab Dedicated, released on AWS this year. We also have the AWS CodeStar Connections, which was just completed in this last quarter. CodeStar Connections is a capability to take a GitLab.com repository and connect it up to CodeStar Connections. If you're familiar with this process, this gives you a CodeStar Connections object that you can then use in other services in order to wire a GitLab repository into them. Some of the ones that are supported right away are AWS Service Catalog, AWS Glue Notebook Jobs, also Amazon CodeWhisperer customization capability, and then also AWS Proton, a relatively new service. If you're familiar with AWS and you've been working with it for a while, you know that you can take sort of a subassembly and connect it to something else and open up some more possibilities. And that's exactly the way this integration works. If we take our CodeStar connection and we connect it to an AWS code pipeline, then we get a code pipeline, which can then bridge us into a lot of other services. One of those services we can now get into is code build via code pipeline, also code deploy, and SageMaker. SageMaker does ML ops pipelines using code pipeline. And then this final one, CodeGuru Secure. This is actually not technically using CodeStar Connections. This team built GitLab CI YAML to enable its service to be used within GitLab CI. So now you can have Amazon CodeGuru security scans flow right up into your GitLab instance information. Let's chat a little bit deeper about CodeWhisperer customization capability. Now, what I describe on this slide is basically just the concept of CodeWhisperer customization capability. It's not something that GitLab built, it's something that Amazon built, but the ability to use a GitLab repository in this is the unique part. Code customization capability is basically a retrieval augmented generation capability. Basically, by taking your large language model and giving it awareness of your repository, then when you do ask for code suggestions, it has context-aware responses. So to give you an example, if you have a fairly old code base, or maybe it's even only just a couple years old, without this additional context, a code suggestions utility might suggest some new component for the framework you're using that would require you to refactor your code base to get to use that component. Well, with this additional awareness, it can be respectful of the libraries already in use in your software. So it can suggest using features and functions of existing libraries or very moderate changes to any of that information in order to get to the functionality you're looking for. Also wanted to show you where you access creating a connection with CodeStar Connections. If you start with any of these 5 services in the box labeled number 1, whether it's code commit, code artifact, code build, code deploy, or code pipeline, if you go down to the settings section, hit connections, you'll get this developer tools connection panel, which is common across all the services. You can see here in the box labeled 4, I've already set up a GitLab connection. These connections go into a specific project on the GitLab side. The create connection button will let you create additional connections to additional GitLab repositories. Once we have this connection object and it's on there, it'll either self-populate into other services where you have a drop-down and can pick this connection, or you can copy that string and drop it into the service if it does not support prompted retrieval of all of your connections. So that's where you access that CodeStar Connections bit from. Let's talk a little bit more about the CodeGuru secure scanning integration. There was also a dedicated talk on this, so you can find the recording out on the web there. It was a day one integration built by the Amazon CodeGuru team. So when they released their CodeGuru Secure, this was at Reinforce, they had already built the GitLab CI integration for it. It's also an example of the extensibility of the GitLab DevSecOps platform. So in this case, when you expose your Amazon CodeGuru Secure scanning results, they become a first-class finding within the GitLab system. So you see them in your security dashboards, in your merge approval widgets, and also they can be subject to merge approval rules. So this gives them the full capability of any integrated scanner. And merge approval policies are very interesting because they make security oversight a lot leaner. So in some organizations, they will fail security jobs in order to say, hey, you've got a finding that you need to deal with. The problem with that is it will cause it so that the system does not do all the scanning that it could do. And so when you fail during scanning, you end up blocking that developer's productivity until they deal with that one situation. When we only had that capability, failing builds in order to get something addressed, then that was, made sense. But now GitLab has this new capability. Basically, the new capability allows you to define a specific set of permissions that say, if this person is trying to merge something that is, say, a critical finding in SAST, then they need additional merge approvals, usually from the security department. So we can leave the problem of blocking that code from going anywhere till later, and the developer can keep iterating. So let's say they get a couple security findings and they're like, oh, I really need to use this piece of software. I'm not sure how to work around this. Well, they can open a collaborative issue to talk with someone in security or a senior person on their team and keep working while that collaboration is working in parallel. So much more efficient way to work with this. In addition, security only has to come and look if the developer elects to not address the finding and assert that it needs to be accepted. So security does not need to pay attention to every merge request or every repository or every finding. They can pay attention once a developer feels like they need to merge it for whatever reason. Those are some of the things that AWS built on the AWS side in order to bridge over into GitLab. This is something that GitLab built this last year, and that is runner authentication using OpenID. You may also have heard this called OIDC and JWT. And there was another session, another talk on this at reInvent, so you can find that on our portal here. GitLab now supports 3 methods of authenticating runner workloads into AWS environments. So we've supported keys forever. IAM profiles are supported as well, where you put your runner compute right inside of an Amazon account and assign an IAM profile to that compute. But now we also support OpenID with JWT. This is the most advanced industry way of addressing this topic of, how do we authenticate automation workloads into environments? It allows you to do group and project level mapping into specific roles in specific AWS accounts so that your runner can reach into those accounts. This also lets you have a per group level of granularity of authorizing into environments, while also using shared runners. So the IAM profile approach does not allow you to use shared runners. You end up with some runner sprawl in order to have different permissions in different environments. This is a feature that solves all of this together. Up until now, we've been talking about features built by one company or the other that allow us to integrate. I'm going to talk now a little bit about a couple solutions that we built. And so these solutions are built by solutions architecture. The first one is a serverless framework doing GitOps CD with DevOps environments into GitLab. There was another separate talk on this one as well. But basically, it's an end-to-end serverless.com development and deployment using GitLab Flow. And part of the reason that's important is that we use a merge request process. And that merge request first process allows us to make sure that the work visibility is available right away. We also set up a little environment that is lifecycle managed, a DevOps environment. So it's happening with your production infrastructure as code in your production environment. And that environment only lives as long as the merge request. But what it lets us do is get security findings for DAST, API fuzzing, and anything else that requires a live copy of the application running. So that's one of the aspects of why this is beneficial. We have serverless.com specific security findings and scanning versus using kicks. So this allows us to find serverless.yaml findings about not encrypting your function and other things like that. Also, in the example code, we have Amazon CodeGuru Secure configured, and we actually do the security policy approvals with Amazon CodeGuru Secure findings in the mix. So you can see that our top-level capabilities are automatically in play. In the example, there is working code and workshop tutorials are all included. And this is released under Open Education Resources. So you can use this to train people internally or to do self-paced training. We have virtually the same thing for Terraform using GitOps CD with DevOps environments. And there can really be 2 primary use cases here. One is if you have a team that builds dedicated infrastructure as code repositories. This allows them to test, even in a merge request with small changes, test that the deployments to the production environment will succeed because we get that little merge request environment. but also increasingly organizations are embedding their infrastructure as code inside with their application code. In fact, in the serverless space, if you look at serverless.com framework or AWS SAM, your infrastructure as code is kind of invisible and embedded right into the application code. And developers are using highly abstracted tools and YAML files to specify serverless applications, and then the infrastructure as code is automatically generated or is part of the framework. This gives an end-to-end Terraform development with GitLab Flow, so the merge requests right away, the ability to have those test environments, and also we have the merge request lifecycle DevOps environments. And once again, infrastructure as code-specific security findings using kicks. You don't have to use our scanner. It's easy to plug in Bridge Crews or Identity Cloud solutions for this. And then working code and workshop tutorials, once again, all included with the examples. There's some other lightning talks also that we gave at reInvent. So GitLab Managed Lifecycle DevOps Environments on AWS goes into all the different capabilities you can have with GitLab's built-in environment support. And these are DevOps environments, not developer environments. They can be used together, but the benefit of a DevOps environment is upfront transparency and full feedback on results and using the production infrastructure as code. Developer environments, if they're taken too far, developers can end up being isolated in their development for weeks at a time and then only push code once in a while, where the DevOps environments make it to have a lot of value to push your code more often. We'll also have another session, Frictionless Developer Experience, using human habits to accelerate DevSecOps maturity and increase joy. This talks about GitLab's empowered shift left, where the developers get everything they need to deal with security vulnerabilities as just another defect. And because the capability of GitLab to only scan the code they're changing, they know that they were the ones who accidentally introduced those vulnerabilities during their development lifecycle. So very powerful capability for GitLab to cause folks to start dealing with vulnerabilities before they ever get in the code. And another session was called the Digital Transformation Journey to a Culture of Continuous Customer Value Innovation. GitLab has been publishing month over month new valuable feature capabilities for customers for over 11 years. And as you know, Amazon does the same thing. So this talks about the business level imperative of creating a culture of continuous customer value and how you're dependent on certain things if you're doing that through digital. My name is Darwin Sonoy, and it's been my pleasure to talk to you about some of the really cool new things that we've been doing together with AWS this year. Thank you.